What is going on, sellers? Welcome back to the Sunday edition of our weekly Amazon Q&A show, where we share some e-commerce news, some stats, the occasional business maxim, and of course, we are here to answer your questions about selling on Amazon. So if you've got a question about retail arbitrage, online arbitrage, wholesale, or perhaps you just have a Keepa quandary, drop it in the chat and one of us will be able to help. Now, for those of you who might be new here, my name is Chris Grant, and to my right is my architectonic co-host, Chris Rasick. And this Sunday, we've got a very special guest, the perspicacious Steve French, to report from the trenches of retail arbitrage this Q4. Gentlemen, how is your Sunday going?
Steve, I'll defer to you. How are you?
A little cold, a little snowy. Stayed in today, though, and got caught up on a lot of year-end stuff. So I'm great. Q4 is great, and excited to be here.
It's we talk about sales, right? Like Q4, this part of December is all about the orange bars, and people are talking about sales, rightfully so. But you know what? Shout out to how good sourcing is right now. Like we have, you think about it, like, all the big name brand sales are over, but we're getting into, we're approaching Super Saturday, which is set up to be huge just based on how Christmas falls and how the calendar's set up. But you've got all these retailers vying for our attention, and there's no big Black Friday, there's no label to the sale. So they're all just taking their best shots at our attention. And for the arbitrager, from a sourcing perspective, it is a wonderful time of year.
Yeah, and I want to, like, here in a few minutes, I want to let a few people get in here, but I definitely want to hear, like, we're seeing it on the OA side. And Steve, I've seen you post several times, like you've never seen it better. And I've got a bunch of questions, like what you're seeing and what you maybe expect as we go into typical seasonal clearance time of year and things like that. But yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure people will be curious too, what you're seeing out there. I'll tell you what, let's dive into one piece of news first. Then I've got a bunch of questions for Steve. And then of course, if you guys have questions as well, make sure to drop them in the chat and we'll get to those. I have talked about this once already, but I mean, if you pay attention here, you know that we are a big fans of Costco and their business model. Chris likes to talk about the time, the amount of time, or the average dwell time. So how much consumers spend per minute that they're in store. Of course, I love the story of Jim Senegal, the founder, telling the CEO that he would murder him if he raised the price of the hot dog. And every year, they always share some interesting stats. And during their latest earnings call, they did just that. So approximately 358,000 whole pizzas were sold and served at Costco's U.S. food courts on Halloween, just Halloween day. That is a 31% jump from 2024. And then for the 3 days before Thanksgiving, they sold about 4.5 million pumpkin pies, which is equivalent to roughly 7,000 pies per warehouse. And I can't remember when I did it, or where I put it. But I did figure out how many calories in total that was. And I think it was enough for like 3.5 days worth of calories for the entire United States. Costco also set a new Black Friday record. They had more than $250 million in non-food online orders this Black Friday, which is a record for their e-commerce business. So we've talked about every single stat going up this year in e-commerce, and even Costco is hopping on the bandwagon. But yeah, I don't know. I don't particularly care to go and shop Costco because there's always a line. and it doesn't matter what time of day I go, what day of the week I go. However, I love the business.
Yeah. Did you see the time lapse of the pumpkin pie tables?
Yeah.
That was fascinating to watch. Yeah, I love Costco. It's strong e-commerce numbers from Costco. Do you guys? I know I've come across a few storefronts that seem to specialize. There's an awful lot of Kirkland signature stuff in their stores. Have you guys dabbled in sourcing Costco at all?
I know I haven't personally, but I know a lot of people that you kind of get on those weekly lists, especially the clearance lists, and they are, huge. People, as soon as those lists come out, they're on it. I know on the toy side, since I do so many toys, when they start discounting Lego sets, and same with Sam's Club, I mean, there's a number of guys that they'll just start flying all over the country, wherever there's stock, and buying them up and shipping pallets back. And I mean, it's this huge, it's like the Amazing Race. It's crazy. There's a whole world of people that do this, whether they're, partying it out for Bricklink or selling the sets on, like an Amazon. So, I think it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I believe on Costco, right, online, you don't need a membership. Is that correct to do online orders, or is that incorrect?
I can't remember. I think that
Yeah, I
they
don't
will
recall.
allow you to make orders without a membership, but you end up paying a fee or something.
Okay. That could be
Yeah.
something too, just with, talking about the OA stuff, Black
Yeah.
Friday. I mean, that, there's something to be said for that.
I used to do a little retail arbitrage at Costco. It was never super hot, but every now and again you'd come across a product or two that was awesome. But I do know, and I don't know that he sells any longer. I need to check in with him. But um, for a long time, he was buying pallets of stuff from Costco, and that was his business model. It was very, he'd make 50 cents a unit. He was okay with that, but he would buy, I mean, just pallets and bring it back to his warehouse, ship it into Amazon, and it was a very good business for him. And then he switched to wholesale.
Nice. Yeah, and plus it's worth mentioning, we've had Shannon Jean on, and interesting off Amazon, but Shannon Jean likes to talk about the auctions of return pallets and stuff from Costco, and then Jim, drawing a blank on his last name, he has a whole furniture store based on Costco auctions in the Pacific
Jim Rowe.
Northwest. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an interesting business. I'm very tempted to buy some refrigerators and replace the one in my garage and then sell the rest of them.
Right.
All right. So, Steve, wanted you to come on because you're one of the goats of retail arbitrage, and I know you wouldn't say that about yourself, so I'm happy to do it. But I was hoping to get kind of a report from the trenches, if you will, as to what you're seeing and how sourcing is going this late in Q4.
Yeah, I think, boy, the biggest thing I'm seeing is just massive opportunity. I don't know if there's probably a lot of factors at play, right? And I always hesitate to use my own very small Amazon business to make these huge, sweeping macroeconomic things. But, I know from the just seller side, there's a lot of data points to having less sellers, right? We look at the Keepa charts, we see seller counts down. I think, boy, if you want to get out there and do RA, which for a lot of people is just a total non-starter, but for the average seller, especially if you're struggling to find, I don't know what to sell, I don't know a lot of brands, I'm kind of new to this, to go out in store and to be able to get your hands physically on products and see so many different brands so quickly, I think is a great opportunity. So, what I'm seeing out there is store shelves that are pretty well stocked. It's kind of been like a running joke in my little text thread with Wes and some other folks, the toy investor, like my local Target, their Lego aisles by this time of year, they're literally empty. If there's 5 sets on the shelf, it's great. They're 80-90% full, short of a couple sets that went on a deep discount or maybe a really hot set that's retiring this year. The shelves are full. So once again, is that Lego with production, or is that just more of, hey, there's this opportunity out there? So I know, and I hesitate to say this. I did have a tweet the other day where Joe Hart did say this, another really great RA guy, but I do think he's right. I mean, it feels, just going into the store and being able to fill your cart, fill 2 carts, fill 6 carts, whatever you want to do, feels as easy as it's felt as in like back in the height of the COVID days, back into 2020. And I don't know what it is exactly. I don't have like a magic formula. I'm not questioning it too much. But I know I like today I didn't go out. We got a bunch of snow overnight. It's cold. I just didn't want to do it. And I've had nothing but like regret all day long that I didn't go out. I've wasted today, not going out and shopping. So yeah, stores are full, especially the discount stores. It felt like a lot of their inventory got put out late. I know a few chains I was even questioning, we're getting into like mid-November and I'm like, man, there's nothing on the shelves. Like, what are they doing? And now you walk in today and they're jammed full. Like so I don't know if, what caused that, but I know like my local TJX locations, Ross, places like that, they just have so much inventory. And we're going to start to see a lot of that get clearanced here at some point as we move through the holiday. And even like an Ollie's Army Night is tonight, actually started at 4 p.m. here on the East Coast. So if you got an Ollie's, go out, you can get 25% off toys and 15% off everything else in the store. But they had a whole list of Ollie's around the country where toys were 40% off. And that didn't happen until last January. So a lot of really, really good opportunities out there. Stores are just jammed full inventory. Seller counts are low. Price is high. It's like shooting fish in a barrel right now.
Yeah, that's what I've been telling people. It's like fishing with dynamite. It's been pretty great.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm curious about, I know that a lot of people aren't going to want to go do retail arbitrage, and that's fine. But for those who may want to take advantage of it, maybe they don't have a lot of experience with it, or they're thinking about diving in. Like, how could someone make the most out of RA over this last week and a half before Christmas comes?
Yeah. So, if you're someone that likes to FBM, right? FBM is a really great opportunity. You can go in and it's really not too hard. You don't have to scan too long to find things where the seller count's super low or there's no offers at all. And I know you have been talking a lot about, the BOPUS model where you can just go on and not really have to go in the store, right? You kind of go through the website, you find things to just buy online, pick up in store, and you don't have to get your car. They'll bring it out to you, right? So you can it's like a quasi RA, OA-RA hybrid, really. But yeah, I think, just start with what you know. Start with discount stores are easier just because of pricing, I think, especially this time of year. Start with a category, obviously seasonal stuff is going to be better, whether that's some seasonal grocery, seasonal gifting ideas, toys, a lot of toys this time of year, might be something that sells 50 times a month. Well, right now it's selling 400, 600, 800, right? These things 8, 10, 20x during Q4, especially right now, the peak of Q4. So think like you're giving gifts. What's Aunt Nancy out there looking for? She's got to get little Johnny, and just kind of go through and see where people are at in the store, and start picking out some giftable things and scanning them and be curious, and you'll find profit. You really will.
So I don't know why this is, because I personally find that OA and RA are really the same thing. It's just a different place. You're doing one standing up behind a cart. You're doing the other, safely behind your keyboard. Yep. If someone were going to step out and touch some grass and go do a little RA, what do they need to look at? Like, what is Steve looking at when he scans a product? Is it, I know that you use the seller app. Are you opening up Keepa for every item? I guess, what's the process for you?
Yeah. So I will say, a big upgrade here in the French household. I do have Seller AMP, and I do kind of almost use it sometimes. So we're getting real technical. But yeah, I use the seller app. I use Keepa. You know, I source a lot of the same stuff over and over and over. So it's I'm not, unless it's something new to me or I'm buying a ton of quantity, I don't get super deep into the, really analyzing, every single angle side of it, because just from reps, right? You just kind of take the law of averages and how much time am I going to spend to really analyze based on, my miss rate? Is it worth it? But I would say for people, especially right now, make sure you're not just looking at the 30-day chart or even the 90-day chart. Zoom out a little bit, understand why this might be a good buy, why it might be a bad buy too, right? I think that's really important as we hit these peak demand things. Sometimes you can, if you really go deep on something, you can get yourself in a little bit of trouble on maybe a product that's really hot and then it fizzles out here in the next week or so. But yeah, look for that. I mean, we all have regional advantages, right? Whether they're regional chains of stores, regional grocers, just whatever. I've talked in the past about Dollar General, which isn't really what it was back in, 2020 to maybe 2022, but there's one on every corner out here where I'm at in Ohio. Everyone has something somewhere where they're at, where it's a big regional advantage. And I think that's a great place to start too, especially, I don't do a lot of grocery. I know I've said seasonal grocery a lot in this, but that's something a lot of other people have success with. And depending on where you are, if you're in Texas, there's a lot of very specific Texas things you can get, right? If you're in the South, there's a lot of stuff there. Certain candies, certain flavors, barbecues, whatever you want to get into. There's a lot of different advantages there that you can play on and carve out a nice little niche.
Yeah. I would almost call what you do vibe sourcing. Just going with the gut. I like it.
Yeah.
It's very like when I got started, like Keepa wasn't around. It was just hey, let's open the seller app, let's look at the sales rank, and let's take a flyer on 5 or 10 of these.
Yeah.
What January is called Q5. Well, we've called it Q5 for quite a few years anyway, in the Amazon seller space. What do you expect as we move into January and Q1?
Yeah. I think the first thing I want to say is I want to really urge people, and once again, it's your business, do whatever you'd like. But I know so many people that, okay, it's Sunday, December 14th right now. 1 week from today, they're going to turn vacation mode on. They're going to shut everything off and they're going to go away for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever. I would urge everybody to rethink that a little bit. I know in my business, January, not in terms of, raw dollars, but in terms of percentage, is almost always the best net profit month, or at worst in the top 3 of the year. And while it might seem really awesome to, okay, let's just enjoy the holidays. I'm burnt out. I've been doing 200 FBM orders every day, whatever. Seller counts are super low. Pricing is super high. You're coming into gift card season, right? And I'm sure you guys have talked a lot on here about gift card spending and the psychology with that. And every year we give more gift cards than the year before, and all that stuff. I love, you called it Q5. I love selling in January. It's one of my favorite months. And so if you're one of those people that wants to really just kind of shut it down for a while, I just urge you to maybe rethink that, especially if you're trying to really gain some traction. But what to expect? Clearance, can be all over the map, right? It used to be very predictable, but now with so much fulfilled out of store, in this kind of post-COVID fulfillment era, things have changed a little bit, especially in the big box stores. But, just kind of keep up to date on your friends, what they're seeing, what they're sourcing, what obviously emails to all the stores, be ready for that. Just kind of seeing when sales start, because it is kind of unpredictable. But, you're going to start to see, early in the year, Kohl's always does a really great half off clearance sale early. Dollar General, half off clearance sale early, maybe end of February. But all the discount stores, that's where I love like the TJX yellow tag sale, I call it. They do it in January and July. They do it twice a year. It's great. So all the TJX companies do that. Ross will clearance everything. Walmart at some point, whatever their wacky clearance schedule at this point, gets off to it. One other thing I'll say is just we kind of talked about the Keepa chart and zooming out a little bit. Be a little bit cautious, especially with the, national big box chains. If something's, clearanced here where I'm at, it's probably clearanced in the other thousands of locations around the country. Really examine that discount, really examine that Keepa chart. Like, say if we're looking at Target, right? Target kind of has this 15, 30, 50, 70% off structure they follow. Unless I really love it, I'm kind of waiting until at least 50. And I'm fine with, if I go into Target and they have 12 or something, 30% off, okay, it's good, but I'm going to wait. And maybe by the time it's 70 off, maybe they only have 4 left. I'm happy to get those 4 at 70% off than getting the 12 and trying to figure out, how that's going to work at 30% off. And then I'm playing catch up with everybody who got the much bigger discount. So if you're kind of new to the clearance stuff, stuff is going to tank a little bit, right? It's all supply and demand and that sort of thing. But just get out there and get after it. Like I said, be curious. And it's a great time. January is my favorite. It really is, because it's like you have this like euphoric run up of every day's better. And then like everybody stops for a while. And I've always sat here like, man, it's still so good. Like, I don't know. January has been great. And I hope it's great for everybody else too.
Yeah. January is always awesome.
Sorry, Chris. Steve, tell me if I'm being too granular with this or maybe over analytical, but I've noticed the same thing, and you mentioned it. Seller counts are low. I think Crypto Butthead said it in the comments too. Like, seller counts are lower right now, and multiple people are noticing this. Is that, and then knowing that there's going to be a percentage of sellers that pack it in and take the last week of the year and maybe a week or two, if not more, of weeks of January off. Mm-hmm. Can we read into that as far as, because you said word of caution as far as nationwide clearance? Can we kind of discount products that maybe tank? Is the tank not going to be quite so severe? Is that asking too much in our analysis?
I think so. Yeah, I anticipate it being a little weaker, just because it's. I don't see the trend reversing from kind of what we've seen from the last 18 months or so, right? We've kind of seen this slowly, trend down in terms of seller counts, and just talk about reselling and all this stuff. And as Amazon has kind of outlined the seller that they really want, in my opinion. I think a lot of people have decided, maybe other things are for them a little more than this, and that's fine. But I know the people that have kind of kept their head down and kept going, really everybody I've talked to that's in that boat this Q4 is just having a great year, great Q4, and excited to see where that goes in Q1. A lot of people, it's Q4, you start to look at your numbers, you start to figure out, okay, how to go. You start to, I got to talk to my CPA, I got to pay taxes. There's all kinds of things that maybe some people put off, and you never know. You never know what happens. But yeah, I think the trend just kind of continues, and I'm excited for that.
Here's an interesting little stat that I just made up. And I don't know what the numbers are for last year, but I know it was higher than this. In the toys and games category, there are only 24 ASINs that have 100 or more sellers on them as of today.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, as Steve was talking, I remember clear as a bell a few years ago, there was, and it's always the example I use when people worry about competition, and I try to explain the ratio of, if the seller rank if the sales rank is low enough, competition basically doesn't matter. I think there's a leveling off. But I remember Lego sets with 300 FBA offers on it, and I was still buying because the velocity was so good.
Lego set 31122, Lego fish tank. Anybody can look that up. Go back and look at the seller counts. I think it was over 400 at one point. They were Walmart exclusive. Everybody knew about it. It was hot. They had a pallet in the aisle in Walmart, in the main aisle, a whole pallet of them for $18, just after Black Friday. It's a $30 set. I don't know what it is today. I mean, it's pushing $200 today, and that was just a few years ago. Like, if that thing can rebound, it's amazing. But yeah, that's, and the seller count thing's interesting. In terms of, like you're saying, over 100. I don't know if part of that, there has been a little bit of a movement, I think, on Amazon's side to randomly restrict some of those hotter seller things for certain people. I know Jeff Storch was posting a little bit about that early in Q4. So I don't know if that's it. I mean, I don't know if some of these listings are meant to have 400 sellers. I don't know if Amazon loves that or not, but that's my example. Lego said 31122. Everybody check out that Keepa chart. What a wild ride. It's amazing.
Yeah. All right. We've got a couple questions I want to hit. So the first one comes from Instagram. Steve, Chris, what are your guys' IG handles?
Oh boy.
What the heck did I make that?
I'm on Instagram so often. I'm at Steve French AMZ altogether.
Now, for those of you who might be watching this on Instagram, I would highly suggest that you get on Twitter. It is the place to be.
Yes.
Yeah, you need mine.
Yeah. What's yours?
Yeah, it's Chris _OAL247.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Vernon, is there any issue with plastic protectors purchased through Prime when shipping Funkos via FBA to prevent damage? So I'm going to take this question a couple of different ways because it seems like you're curious. Can you use Prime benefits for buying something for your business? Yeah, that's okay. You won't have a problem there. You're not reselling that particular item. You're reselling a Funko, and this just happens to be a piece that you might need for your Funko. So we ship them Prime to our prep center. That way we can send them in, no problem. But yeah, no issues there.
Chris, I'll add one thing on that. There are a number of Funko listings. Obviously, Funko's branded Funko, right? So one thing people really like to do is they like to bundle the clear protector with the Funko. Well, most of those are branded Pop, P-O-P exclamation, which technically there's been some issues with those over the years. Amazon's kind of left them up, but I'd tread lightly on those. And then also just be careful. There's still some folks out there, even though they cleaned up a lot of it, that like to say they have a brand, they have their own branded clear protector. So if you're selling Funko, as long as you're on the Funko listings, you're good. Funko's very interesting because so many people have given that up too. I have some Funkos that I do really well with, but just watch out for those folks that have a brand, and watch out for those Pop branded listings because you never know.
Yeah, I love the Funko when it's all branded properly and there's no sales rank. Those are my absolute favorite.
Yes, great.
All right. One of the things I'm curious about is Chris made a tweet the other day, and then Steve, you retweeted it, and you're like, I could talk about this for an hour. So I want to bring that up, and that is specifically about lead lists.
Yeah.
Now, full disclosure, everyone here has some form of lead list. So just for anybody watching, just so you know. But I think we've all used them. Matter of fact, not only am I have a lead list of sorts, but I am also a user of lead lists, even to this day. And so, Steve, I'm curious your thoughts on it, especially coming from an RA angle.
Yeah. So full disclosure, obviously I run two different lists. I've been on many different lists. In fact, I loved one so much I bought it and made it my own. I think I'll come at it from the toy side. With Toys R Gold, I obviously people, they can subscribe or not. It does baffle me sometimes when I know there's people that like are 100% toys and they will they'll get off the list and they'll say, they can use whatever excuse they want or whatever reasoning, but like, let's say a list is, we'll use a round number, $100 a month or $200 a month. I mean, the value for that is incredible, right? If you're on one of Chris's lists he put out, and I bought a bunch of them and I've seen those, it's tremendous for, people pay VAs, and obviously VAs are very affordable, but the managerial side of all of that. And, you have these professional people that are putting out good lists. And I think in my quote tweet there, I use quality. I might even put quality in caps. If you're buying a quality list from a real person who's really doing this every day, I think the opportunity is just incredible and it just takes, very small things. I remember there was one night, my wife and I were out on a date and we're driving around, and I bought a bunch of Lego on Facebook Marketplace. So we went to pick that up, and then we were having dinner. So we're picking up the Lego, I'm waiting, and I get this email on my phone, and it was a store that I had bought. I was on one of Eli's beauty lists way back when, and I'd bought a lead from this store online. I had no idea they had brick and mortar. I never even looked that far into it, but I got this email saying they had this in-store sale. And I showed it to my wife and I said, hey, look at this. And we looked it up on the phone. There was a location like 30 minutes away. We skipped dinner. We went there, and it ended up being one of our best sources of RA for like 2 years, until Estee Lauder eventually, we all know that. But, just one little thing, right? If I wouldn't have been on that list and I wouldn't have bought from that source and I wouldn't have signed up for their emails, I wouldn't have seen that. And that we made, literally profited hundreds of thousands of dollars from that RA source in a couple of years, just at one. Like, I wouldn't have got that if it wasn't on the list, right? And it's, I said this in a live earlier, and I'm gonna kind of butcher it as well here, but going back a few years now, Chris, I know you're into sports a little bit, especially hoops. Greg Popovich, the 1 year with the Spurs, they had this saying, and it was basically about, hitting a rock with a sledgehammer over and over, and it, okay, the 10,000th time you hit it, it cracks, right? Well, which hit cracked it? You could say it was the 10,000th, or, but obviously we understand that it's the culmination of all of that over and over and over every day, just pounding away. And I think the lists are the same way, right? Just one little source, one little sale can literally transform your business. So I think people get really short-sighted when it comes to some of this stuff. Now, obviously, if you're not finding any value on the list and the leads stink and everything tanks and the guy that runs it is a bozo, okay, well, yeah, maybe find a different one. But there's so many quality providers out there. I feel like everybody, should have one, unless you're really, really niched out. So, yeah, it's important.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I run a lead list now because of how much I used and how much I liked lead lists, Yeah. And I decided as I got good at sourcing, I knew how valuable they were to me in the beginning, because even, we could talk about the rabbit trailing and the actual opportunities, but, there's something to be said about seeing positive results and recognizing good leads. I think in the tweet, if anybody didn't see it, I think I called a lead list a cheaper VA with a higher batting average, because it's basically if you're on a good one, it's been vetted, it's all the discovery is done for you already, so you can take that, you can rabbit trail off that. If you're on, I like that the industry as a whole listened to the market, and list caps have come down way down from where they were. I think they're in a viable area now. I think most of them, I'd say the average, if I had to guess, would be about 20 sellers per list now, which feels much better. I'm not sure what the exact right number is, but 20 is way closer to the correct number than 50, put it that way. So yeah, so you seeing good leads, because Chris, we talked about it. If you're a newer seller and you keep finding bad leads, there's a risk of like reinforcing what not to do, and you need to balance that out with vetted good leads, you know, and you kind of put the two together, and it just makes you better overall, you know. Plus, not to mention, I think if somebody subscribed to a bunch of lead lists and sat on them for about 60 to 90 days, they could run an entire business just on that. Because no one said it over and over again. People don't farm their database enough, and they don't look back over the assets that they've already purchased, which is silly.
I'm actually going to be doing an experiment here soon where I go and pull leads that were from my own database from Q1 of 2024. I'm going to go through every single one of them and pull out the ones that are currently or still profitable and see what that comes to. And then I'm going to report on it, because I would imagine that there's probably thousands of dollars sitting there.
Yeah.
I think
be curious to watch that.
I think two things. Even if you're newer and you're gated in a lot, I do think there's a lot of value in, like you said, Chris, seeing, you know, good leads over and over and over again. And even if you are gated, at least you have this idea of kind of where you can go, right? And where you can try to start to get some ungates and get things moving. But yeah, the historical aspect, you know, I think the other part of leads list is some people subscribe to them, and then they have no plan, right? And whether your plan is, you know, okay, I'm not going to buy anything on the list, I'm going to rabbit trail off everything, or I'm going to figure out all these store sales cycles, or I'm just going to figure out places to buy things, different sources I've never heard of, or I'm going to use the historical aspect, right? Like I know on both of my lists, you know, like on the toy list, I mean, we go back to 2023, all the leads from 23, 24, and 25, all accessible, right? Same with the RI list, back to September of 23. So, you know, if you're somebody that likes to go back 60, 90, 180 days, you can do that with any of these lists, as long as you have your plan, you're archiving them correctly, and you save it. But I think a lot of people just kind of come in guns blazing thinking, no, I'm going to get all this money just by, you know, grabbing the exact items on the list. And sometimes that's how it works. But a lot of the value is in how you use the list and having a plan and kind of sticking to that every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steve, if someone wanted to learn more about the lists that you run, where would they go?
Yeah, go to my Twitter. I think just go to Twitter. I am at, I'm great at marketing, at Steve French AMZ. So my Instagram is same as my Twitter. So that was smart.
Nice.
But yeah, just go there. It's got all the info. And the toy list is full. It's been full for a little while, which is great. But the RI list does have a couple spots, so people can check that out. And a lot of cool stuff coming up in 26, and massive opportunity. Whether you're on my list or not, that, you know, that's fine. I don't care too much. But like I said, the average seller, you know, go out there, get your hands on some products. It's a great way to learn, right? Even if you don't love it, hey, I'm just gonna do OA, or I want to do wholesaler, I want to do whatever, private label, whatever you want to do. I still think it's pretty cool to get out there and scan some stuff and have the product in your hands.
So I don't know. I have some questions that I'm just personally curious about, and then of course we've got a couple of questions here from the audience as well. But I'll tell you what. Let's start with Polly's question. Steve, could you be a little more specific about what you search in store? Are you heading straight toward the clearance section? Or are you going aisle by aisle looking for sale tags?
Yeah. You know, every store is a little bit different for me, based on how I source it. You know, I love selling toys. That's about 70% of my sales, which is a good chunk. But then another 30%, which is, you know, a little over $1 million a year, is non-toys. So, you know, I'm kind of everywhere. Clearance is great, right? Like, you know, if you're in a big box store, if you're in Walmart, yeah, hit the clearance aisle, hit the stuff, you know, right? I always hit toys, I always hit electronics. Hit the seasonal stuff, you know, check end caps, look for stuff like that. If you're in stores that are more maybe like outlet stores, right? If I'm in a Nike outlet, I'm going to do that totally differently. I'm going to go to the things with the highest discount first, with the highest quantity, right? So for me, I go to shoes. I check out the shoes first. I see what's in a 7, what's got the extra 40% off, and kind of go from there. But you know, time is money. So you're trying to balance. It's always a balance for me in store of scanning new things, you know, maybe new brands, new categories, different aisles. I don't go down too much, and like man, I know just down the road there's another one of these with a ton of profit sitting there, and another. So like I'm trying to learn and grow and expand, but also, I'll play the hits a little bit, right? Like we get in and we play the hits and we get out. So, but if you're newer, start with what you like. If you really like a certain section, right? I love electronics. Okay, go to electronics first and scan that. If you're naturally interested in it, you're going to do a little better, and just kind of branch out from there. But yeah, clearance is a good place to start, just to get the ball rolling for sure.
Does Meyer still run the 50% off clearance sales every now and again?
No, they don't that I know of, but I will say, and I hesitate to even I'm going to say it, but this Q4 has been, Meyer has greatly expanded around me, and I know around Chris too, but boy, I've taken more overnight trips to do Meyer this Q4 than I have ever in the last 6 years. And I'm debating leaving tonight to do another one, actually.
Interesting.
So we'll see what happens when this is over. But yeah, it's been incredible. And not even just Meijer. For those of you who don't know, Meijer is kind of a regional grocer here in Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana. There's about a little less than 300 locations. Going back to the regional advantage thing, whether that's a Kroger, whether that's an Albertsons, whatever that regional, larger store that has a little more than groceries in it for you. I think there's a huge advantage there. They have some different stock. They get different things that the big box stores don't have. They're not as online, or maybe not really online at all. Sometimes they have a website you can buy for pickup, but it's tougher to get things shipped. That regional advantage, I think, for RA is really, really important. So check out whatever that is. I mentioned Kroger 2 weeks ago. They had like 50% off all Barbie. They had a 20% off coupon. Then they had a 15% off friends and family. And then like Lego was 20 off. So you stacked them all together. You got like 47% off Lego, like just wild stuff at the Kroger marketplace stores. So, use your regional advantage there, and kind of cut down. We talked about, Chris, you asked about seller count and, where things are trending. That's a good way to mitigate some of that risk with these seller counts going up is, find some of these stores that aren't available everywhere in the country.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. Speaking of regional advantages, Chris, I do have a fresh batch of Mountain Dew Zero Sugar Code Red, because there was a cheerleading competition and there was a Kroger nearby. They only had 5 12-packs. So I've got to be a little conservative. But
I don't know why they didn't have those down in Cincinnati. I went to at least 4 different Kroger and was disappointed by every single one.
Yeah. Hey, Steve. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said I've almost gotten to the point where I am about to order a Soda Stream.
Yeah, because they just recently added that as one of their syrups. That's a good option. Or you could pay $30 for a 12-pack on Amazon, I believe.
Yeah.
But, hey, Steve, I'm curious, since you have a mature Amazon storefront, what percentage of either your day or your week is premeditated as far as like mapping out your destinations? How flexible do you stay, or are you pretty regimented at this point?
I try to stay pretty flexible, right? Like, I opened that Ollie's email today with the 40% off toy stores, and like if something was close, I don't normally do Ollie's Army Night, but if something was close, I'd try to make a little run here. But no, I try to stay flexible, but also, I think through repetition, you kind of, like I said, play the hits. Like you figure out what works, and there is a certain amount of my day where you can't just be satisfied with if you do the same things every day, kind of the grow or die mentality, right? Like you are dying a little bit, right? Our replens die off, our certain things we like to do, stores close. But so it's probably back to the 80-20 rule. Maybe 80's really planned out, and the other 20 is, hey, if it's Wednesday, let's see what Meyer's got in the ad today. Let's see what the sales are like. I'll be at Meijer at 6 a.m. or whatever and see what my week's going to look like based on how good the sale is. Or, last night I'm awake in the middle of the night. I can't sleep. All right, it's 3 a.m. here on the East Coast. Target's got a new ad out. I'm going through target.com, seeing what's going on. And depending on how good, opportunities are, that kind of depends where the week goes, where money goes. That's a big part of it too, is like, Target had a lot of killer stuff and they've got some good things this week, but nothing crazy, not like last week. Where's the capital go, right? That's got to be pretty fluid and flexible.
Yeah. Steve, just because I'm endlessly curious and I love business, and I promise I don't pocket watch too much, but I'm pretty sure that I saw you say that you're gonna do like 4 million this year. Is that correct? Or pretty close to it? Okay.
Yeah.
What are your plans? Like, are you going to bring on somebody and keep growing this thing? Are you going to see how big you can make it with just, one prep employee? I guess what's next?
Great question. I've said this many times. I'm gonna say it again. Amazon for me has always been a sprint. I feel like I've been sprinting for 6 years now, but it's a sprint. And I posted this on Facebook today. I'm 38, and by the time I'm 45, I think, assuming things kind of just keep going the way they are. Similarly, I have 5 children. I've got a wife. I've got a nice home. I've got a lot of great things, that can all be paid off. And you've got a few million in investments and a few million in the bank. And you don't have to do anything you don't want to do for the rest of your life. And at 45, that sounds amazing. Now, something could change tomorrow. I could, walk out and get hit by a bread truck, but, whatever. So, yeah, I think for me, in terms of growth, I'm not someone who naturally really wants to grow. I've kind of done the corporate thing before where, my job, not right before this, but the job I did for 6 years, kind of out of college, I had like 70 employees. And I vowed I would never do that again, and a lot of them are great. 65 of them are great, but it just, man, it's tough being in charge of a lot of people. It really is. And I think I did well with it, but I didn't enjoy it. And so I didn't really want to do that much that I didn't enjoy. I'm enjoying this. I enjoy every day. I do have the one guy that works for me, but he's independent. He knows what to do. I don't, if I went a whole week and we didn't speak, things would be fine. So, I do have a warehouse now, kind of by necessity. I didn't want it, but the neighbors were tired of me receiving pallets here at the house. They're correct. So, I need somewhere to receive some pallets and store some stuff. And it's right around the corner. So it's perfect. So yeah, there's some opportunity for growth, right? I don't know. It's for me to grow, I want to find the right person or people or team or whatever it is. If I met somebody tomorrow and I thought they would be the perfect shopper, I would hire them and they would be a shopper and they'd go around with me for the next 90 days and I'd show them everything I knew. If I don't find that person for the rest of my time doing Amazon, I won't. So that's really the thing for me, is if I feel like the fit's right, I'm good with growth, right? I'm good with growth with the right people. I'm not good with growth for the sake of it when it feels crazy and hectic and you're just trying to, because then it just becomes a job again. And I'm good with that. I'm good with waking up every day and being excited to do what I do. And if I can keep it that way and grow, great. If I can't, I'm cool right here.
I am always curious, and I know that there might be somebody just be out there in stealth, not on social media at all, who maybe has you beat. But I am curious if you've got to be close to the biggest operation that is for lack of a better term, a one-man show.
Yeah, I know some really great people that do it and are really big. But I don't know of anybody larger per se, and I don't know if that's good or not. Actually, maybe we'll look back and that's not good. I don't know, but I haven't gone insane yet, or at least my wife hasn't said so. So that's good.
Steve, this has been fantastic, man. I appreciate you joining us. I hope that I hope in the new year you'll join us a bit more frequently. Would love to have you on here and chat anytime you want.
I'd love to.
Yeah. All right. One last question, and then I want you to be able to go hang out with your family, especially if you're gonna go do an overnight trip. But lounging gears, curious, what's your rough RA/OA wholesale split these days, and how has that trended over the last couple of years?
I just tweeted this. I want to say I tweeted it early December, and okay, here it is, December 2nd. I was quickly scrolling here. I say in the last 30 days, right? So this is as of December 2nd. Last 30 days, my sales breakdown: 38% RA, 33% wholesale, 28% OA, and there's some decimals in there to get to 100, but pretty much a third split. I will say I did a lot more wholesale last year and less RA. My OA's about stayed the same. The wholesale and RA flipped for me this year. Part of that was just having the prepper, because last year I was still doing this all myself. Right? I did have an RA prep center that was good, but it's still me taking everything there and driving the inventory and stuff like that. So now that I can just come home and unload, and RA's been great. You kind of have to follow the money a little bit. And wholesale is good, but it's just a little more of a lower margin game. And if I can go out and get the volume RA or get similar, right, to what I was getting wholesale with better margin and less competition, great. So RA has really trended up for me in 25. Wholesale's trended down a little bit. I don't see that reversing next year. I think if anything, it might even grow a little bit more, just because the RA, especially this Q4, has been so strong. So once again, talk about how much is pre-planned, how much is just kind of figuring out what's working. RA's really been working for us this year, and the other stuff's been good. No issues with OA or wholesale, but just RA's been extra good. So it gets a little bit of extra time and love there.
Okay, one last thing before I let you go. What does your content diet look like? I'm not talking necessarily Amazon or anything like that, but what's in your ears while you're doing retail arbitrage, or what are you reading?
Yeah, it's an eclectic mix. Do a lot of podcasts. You actually turned me on to a new one. The gentleman with the biographies, and I'm going to totally forget his name, but you posted the one about Canes on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
So I started down a whole rabbit hole with him, and I love those. Those are great.
So
what is that?
David Sender.
Okay, David Sender. Yes. So I'm into that now. That's in the rotation. Every now and again, a Joe Rogan that interests me. I just listened to the John Cena one. He just had his retirement match last night, so kind of interesting.
What an interesting person, by the way.
Crazy, yeah.
I had no idea that John Cena speaks Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And just he's got layers, man.
Yeah. So do a little bit of that kind of stuff. I do a little bit of some sports stuff for fun. I do a little bit of mental health stuff. I've kind of always had some anxiety, and it kind of ebbs and flows as life goes. Some periods of my life have been great, some haven't. So I try to, there's a couple, anxiety podcasts that I try to stay on and listen, and just to kind of hear some of that positive stuff is nice, because my brain is not always the most positive place. It can be a little negative in there. If it doesn't come out the mouth, it's still up there, right? So I try to curb that. Diary of a CEO, I'll do a few of those, right? So just nothing super niche. I'm probably pretty basic when it comes to my consumption there, but that and just a mix of music. I'm kind of like a country guy. We were just down at the Dusty Armadillo on Friday. Black Hawk was there. If any 90s country fans are out there listening, probably not too far from Chris, the Dusty A, but yeah, so we were there, like to do that. My buddy just texted me. Tracy Lawrence is coming kind of close here in May. He wants to go see that. Okay, cool, we'll go. So listen to some music too, and I just want to chill on the shorter drives. Longer drives, I'll throw the podcast on them.
Nice.
Yeah.
And when you if there is time for this, but when you do sit down and just think about your business, what questions are you asking yourself?
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a mix of doubt and gratitude. I think in my brain, so blessed to be doing this and be really have as much success as I've had. But in terms of questions, I think the thing that I question the most is just, and I do it a lot this time of year, and as we go into Q1, I call it a post-mortem, right? I'm really always trying to look backwards a lot, and whether that's on a specific ASIN or just specific like overall kind of macro thoughts of the business or the economy or reselling or fees or whatever, right? Am I kind of getting this stuff right? So for me, it really, I sell a lot of toys. I go pretty deep on certain discontinued stuff. So a lot of it is that, right? Am I reading the signs right? I know you had Wes on your podcast, and he talked about a detective finding clues. There's all these clues out there, right? There's all these things, especially there's so many things I source that aren't profitable at the time that I source them, which is like a kind of a whole other thing to dive into. And when you do that, and that's such a big part of your business, it becomes way more speculative, right? If I'm looking at Keepa charts and I'm just looking for things that hit my profit metrics or close to it, right? We can discard all that non-profitable stuff. Now my RA, I'm finding profitable stuff mostly, but a large percentage of my catalog was bought when it wasn't profitable. So when that's your model, there's a lot to dissect there and try to, really plan out, and really going back and seeing if I was right in my analysis or if I was wrong, and why is a big part of what I think about, but also just the day-to-day nuts and bolts stuff of, should I be growing? Should I have a shopper? Should I have 5 shoppers? Should I be, am I doing the right thing? Am I happy? Is my family happy? Am I there enough? Am I not? What's going on? A lot of that too. Just, making sure all the balls are up in the air, and, we're getting through another day.
Perfect. Steve, I appreciate you taking the time to do this, man.
Of course.
Like I said, I want you to go have some time with your family and not keep you too long. And if you do head out, drive safe, man. I appreciate you.
We'll do. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. And I'll be back soon.
All right. See you, man.
Sounds good. And hey, thanks for making the village free. Like that's it's always great to talk to you. And I think that's worth mentioning. If anybody's on Facebook, Steve's group, the village. If I'm not getting the exact searchable title right, I apologize. But it's always good talking to you. So I appreciate the opportunity to hear more from you.
Yeah,
in the
love
village.
it. Yeah, the more the merrier. Come join us. It's got a nice little active group, so that's fun, especially on Facebook, where it can be death trying to get some activity going.
Yeah, it can.
Very true.
All right, guys. Thanks.
All right, take it easy, man.
Have a good one.
All right, let's dive through some of these questions here. Make sure that you guys get the help that you need. We'll have to pull this out though. Lounger says, as an unsponsored plug, one of Chris R's leads list items led me to an amazing rabbit trail just last week. It's great to hear.
Yeah, great to hear, man. And thanks for the plug.
Right. At Eden Sings, I'm trying to figure out accounting for placement and inbound fees. Averaging out over all categories, I think $1 per unit is what I'm paying. How to adjust the P&L for prepaid placement cost. Well, I'm no bookkeeper, and I would not take my advice for bookkeeping or taxes. But I would think that should be a separate line item. Like, I don't think that you're going to want to average that into your cost of goods sold or anything like that. At least that's not what I do. That ends up just being its own expense as a line item. And then you just kind of need to figure it out, like similar to how I figure out what my inbound shipping should be. Every quarter, I go back over the last quarter and I say, okay, well, how many pounds did I ship in and what was my total cost? And then I divide it out, and maybe it comes to 65 cents a pound. And that's what we use for the next quarter when we're trying to figure out profit and ROI. I would imagine that you should probably do the same thing, at least for the calculations. But in the bookkeeping side, it should just be its own line item. Dave, I'm finding a lot of profitable products, but everything is gated. Is there a best strategy to find ungated products? Keep going. That's probably not what you want to hear, but the reps is the only thing that's going to get you to where you're looking to go. There's no list that says, oh, this is what I'm ungated in. You're going to come across products that you are ungated in and brands that you are ungated in. So what you're going to want to do is make note of those brands that you come across and then try to go wide across those brands. Now, don't go too crazy because brands can get gated at any time. But, as you scan through 50 or 100 or 500 different brands, you're going to pull back 15, 20, 25 brands that you can sell. And then you can kind of spider web each one of those brands out into multiple profitable products.
Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm kind of making an assumption here, but I assume part of that problem is you might be a newer seller. There's something to be said about, once sales volume reaches a certain level, you'll probably hear a wide range, but, things will open up organically simply as your store matures and progresses along. And then there's something to be said about not only once you find a brand, you kind of hunt that brand in other places. Also, pay attention to the sellers that are on the brands you can sell. Some of them might be new sellers too. And so if you take a peek in their storefronts, maybe you find another new seller and they've had similar issues and they may have found a different set of solutions, aka brands that they can sell. That may open things up for you too.
Ibrahim, this is a great question. What is a good budget for a beginner? I'm not going to give you an exact dollar figure because I don't think that is the right answer. But what I think the right answer is that it's the amount of money that you can lose. And honestly, this is what it should be for any business that you start. Okay. You never, at least I don't, I never want to risk more than I can stomach or, not ruin my lifestyle with losing 100% of it, because that is the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is if I invest $1,000 into a new business, I might lose it all. Matter of fact, if you look at statistics, the chances are greater that you will lose it all. Now, of course, we don't want you to do that. We're not looking for that to happen, but that is the way that I like to hedge the downside. Because on the other hand, you're trying to make an asymmetric bet. And if you invest $1,000, maybe you turn that $1,000 into $5 or $10 or $50,000 of sales over the next year or whatever it is. So I think that's really the only right answer. If you can only lose $100, okay, then you should go out and you should probably source used books until you grow that nut a bit bigger. If you can invest $500, then I would start with retail arbitrage and go in stores and maybe even merchant fulfill to try to turn that money around a bit faster. And if you can start with $5,000, then maybe OA is the way to go for you. So it just depends.
Yeah, you don't see too many stories. I don't tell my story either, but you can start with zero if you wanted to. A lot of the years ago, 6 years ago when I started, there were a lot of stories of people starting with eBay and just flipping stuff around the house that they don't use anymore. I made, I kind of did it for fun because I still had a full-time job and I just kind of wanted some proof of concept. I actually sold an old cell phone on Facebook Marketplace for $90 took that to Goodwill and bought all the Polo, Ralph Lauren, and Nike Dry Fit that I could find, for $2-3 or less, and slapped those on eBay and kind of just proliferated from there. I did invest, actual funds once I got more serious, once I had that proof of concept. But that's a fluid question. And Chris, you accidentally gave gambling advice too. That's how I was told to if I'm going to start betting sports, never bet more than you're willing to lose. So, not that this is it's apples to oranges, of course. This isn't.
Of course,
this is not akin to sports betting.
Carrot juice. So I'm making a website where my AI gives the best deals on retailing apps. You're speaking a language that I'm not sure I understand, so I don't have any tips for you, but I'm very interested. Curious what you're looking to do, and happy to offer any advice I can if I know a little bit more about what you mean by that. All right. We've got one more thing, and then we'll let you guys go. But we've talked about lead lists, we've talked about Q1, and it is just middle of the month so far. However, Q1 is just around the corner, and we're going to be doing something in Q1 a little bit different. So Chris and I are actually going to be doing a lead list together, a lead group, really. And if you want to learn more about it, you can go to oachallenge.com/leads. But for anybody who has wanted Chris to do leads Monday through Friday, this is the place to get them. And there have been several people who have asked if he would finally bring out a Monday through Friday list. Well, this is the way to do it. So there's going to be 25 leads a day, half from Chris, half from myself. And then we're also going to be doing a couple of other things. So number one, you're going to get access to some unreleased software that we have built and are building that is going to be a place for you to store all of your leads and get notified when they are profitable again. So Chris talked about you're not harvesting your own database. Well, the whole goal is to try to make it so that you don't have a choice but to harvest your own database and know, hey, the price on this came back up. Let's go back to it. All right. So you're going to get access to that. We're also, of course, 2 times a week coaching. Monday nights with Chris, going to be doing some live sourcing. Thursdays with me, we'll be doing coaching, sourcing. We'll talk about AI, all kinds of things. Of course, we're going to have a group chat as well. And then for anybody who decides to join the Q1 lead list, we are also going to give you access to OAC Plus, the premier community for Amazon sellers, for free for 90 days. Now, that means you're going to get access to the community. You're going to get access to $3,000 worth of courses. You'll get the OA Challenge replays, Wholesale Challenge replays. You'll get access to points and miles replays if you want to make sure you're maximizing your credit cards for points and miles and cash back. What else do we have in there? You got Keepa Academy if you want to become a master of Keepa. And we've got the Amazon influencer program in there. It's all what you get. And then you're also going to get bi-weekly breakdowns with Chris and I, where we're going to break down every single lead. Or not, maybe not every single lead, but we're going to break down leads, say why it's a good buy, why it's a bad buy, et cetera, and so on. And I knew this would come up, so I'm happy to talk about this. Yes, there can be up to 100 members. I highly doubt we're going to get there. Matter of fact, we did not get there in our Q4 group this year. So 1, I wouldn't worry about that too much. 2, a lot of people think that having this many folks in a lead group um, ends up bringing the lead value down. Well, it doesn't. And I can say that confidently for a couple of reasons. One, not everyone is gated or ungated in every single lead. Two, not everyone wants to source all the types of products that get shared. It's just the way it is. Matter of fact, I was going through our Q4 lead list just the other day. Um, actually, I was on. Chris and I do this thing where sometimes we just work. Like we turn on the video and we shut off our mics and we just work. And at the end of one of the sessions, I was like, man, I just went back through some leads from the Q4 group where leads that I've shared. And in 3 or 4 minutes, I found 3 or 4 products that were still profitable that were shared at the very beginning of Q4. I know people who reach out to me and literally tell me, "Hey, that lead list that you gave us back in Q2 of 2025, yeah, I'm still buying stuff off of it." So I totally get it. It feels like it's too much, but we've actually also got the data. Over 85% of leads stay profitable. And that's not something I came up with. That actually came from a member. So I understand completely, uh, but I've got the data to say otherwise. And outside of the leads themselves, although I have a hard time believing you wouldn't be able to get a return on your investment based on what you could buy, the other things that you can get inside of the Q1 lead group should make a return on your investment that's worthwhile. Um, so, but anyway, happy to talk more about that if you want to shoot me an email or something. Dive into that.
Yeah, I don't know if I've shared it here or not, but like behind the scenes, you guys would be shocked at how you tend to think of these things at, max capacity, right? You're like, well, 100 members is too much, and yet to be seen if we actually reach 100. But if you think about it, you people join a lead list with 20-25 members, a normal subscription, right? So say there's 25 people and you get 7-8 leads Monday through Friday, right? This is 25 Monday through Friday. So you're getting over 3 times that. So you can kind of project if there were 25 people on that list, 3 times the lead could withstand 3 times the members. If you think 25 is fair, right? So those are the ratios. What you don't realize is thinking in max capacity across the board with something like this, it's really a mistake. Because I can tell you, I see the emails that I send out on my weekend leads list. Open rates are not 100%. Okay. And Chris Beam he said, she made a joke earlier and she said, my strategy is to buy leads list and forget all about them and never check them. Right. That's the truth. Like open rates are not 100%. Clicks are certainly not 100%. And then you kind of get it within the actual leads. How many people, 100 members aren't going to go through and buy every single, 25 leads every single day, Monday through Friday. Just, it's nothing close to that. So, but that's kind of how I understand why we kind of think in terms of max capacity and whatnot, but reality is far more manageable.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you'd like to learn more about it, we've got an early bird pricing going on right now. You can use, what is the code? Q1 early bird 200. You get $200 off. It ends up being, what is it? Ends up being about $265 a month for access to both Chris and I and our leads. And then the rabbit trails that you can take off of them, things like that. It is, we promise you should be able to, I can't guarantee it because that would be against the law. And, for anybody who might have a friend at the FTC, I can't risk them reaching out, but, it's fairly easy to make your money back on these things if you use them appropriately. And we'll show you how to do that. Because one of the things that, and this seems counterintuitive, but the whole thesis that Chris and I were working on with this is we want to make people not reliant on a group like this after the group is over. Now, will people come back? Yeah, absolutely. Like, is there anything better than just having some leads fed to you that you can actually make money on or easily rabbit trail down? But at the end of the day, Chris and I also want to make it so that you're not reliant on us. And we'll do our best over the next, over 90 days to do that for you guys. All right. Lounger, there will be an email coming out to OAC Plus members separately, where I've got that all taken care of and figured out for you as well. So, all right. Yeah. See, Chris says it again. I've been on Q4 leads list for 4 years. I don't think I've bought more than 10 leads, not because the leads are not great, just because I never look at them. Yeah, I get it. I get it. We all get in our own lanes. All right. Becky, is there some place to find all the walk videos that you've posted? I found them really helpful. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. They are just they're just on Instagram or Facebook. I'm at Clear the Shelf. They're also on Twitter, I guess. And TikTok. I'm posting them everywhere. So I'm at Clear the Shelf on every social media platform. And big shout to Chris. He's the one who was like, you know what, you should try this. And then I started enjoying it. So hopefully I'll keep doing that for a while. I enjoy those.
Today's was a banger.
Oh, thank you.
I gotta admit, I thoroughly enjoyed that one.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't know. I want to get better at telling stories. And not for the reason that people might think like, oh, he wants to get better at telling stories because he can, make social media bigger. But no, I actually want to get better at telling stories because one, I think people learn better through stories. And to be frank, I want my kids to listen to me more. And so I figure if I can get better at telling stories, maybe I can maybe I can get them to listen to me a little bit more. So that's kind of the whole purpose.
Yeah, not to get too deep, but stories are crucial. I think Joan Didion was the one that said she claims that stories is what makes us the dominant species, even more so than opposable thumbs. It's our entire existence is based on stories. But I won't dive into that part of it. It's too late in the show to start with that.
Right. I will have to say one of the other things too, though, is by making these, it's requiring me to take in a lot more. I'll call it content for lack of a better term, but it is requiring me to have the inputs be a bit more, which it's a good and a bad thing. But the good thing is I can kind of pull out the signal. And I get, so like tomorrow's is going to be based on something I read today because I'm rereading the Almanac of Naval.
Nice.
And just one of his tweets, from his probably most famous tweet thread, really stuck in my head today when I reread that tweet thread. And so that's what tomorrow's will be about. So it's forcing me to read more and, take in some other content, like listen to a lot of, tell you what, one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best modern day philosophers is comedian Jimmy Carr. Wow.
Especially this last media junket that he's been on.
Yes.
He is throwing out some serious wisdom. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think that comedians have such a unique talent set because I mean, the whole job of writing jokes is to like take a funny story and then remove everything you can from it just to be able to get the setup and the punchline, essentially. And being able to do that, you can take philosophies and turn them into maxims so easily. But anyway, we're gonna go down a rabbit hole here that people will be like, what are these guys talking about? But yeah. All right. So listen, if you guys want to learn a little bit more, head over to oachallenge.com/leads. And I don't know, maybe Chris and I will do some philosophy sessions as well, if anybody's interested in talking about the meaning of life and all the things that run through our heads and our conversations. So, all right. I think that's it for us tonight, guys. We'll see you on Wednesday to do this all over again.